Well, from one sizzling place to another, from Lewis in East Sussex to Harry Atherton, who's in Normandy. Except that Harry is surrounded by beautiful little bars and pubs and so on in one of those classic Norman villages. Have you been out sampling it all, Harry?
Well, and I will do after this program. Because, as you can imagine, France is in mourning at the moment, having been eliminated from the World Cup by Spain, their neighbor Spain. So I don't think there'll be much talk about that, mind you, in the bar tonight. I think they'll be licking their wounds.
Well, it may be that neither of us will want to talk tomorrow night after tonight. I mean, Argentina have always been our bête noire, haven't they? Ever since Maradona in the hand of God.
Yes, indeed. I mean, do you have a forecast for tonight's result? What are your feelings?
I think it just might go to penalties. Mm-hmm. And when it goes to penalties, my heart sinks.
Yes.
Because although we've won one on penalties, we are not particularly good at it.
Yeah, yeah.
We're not good at all when it comes to facing, towards the goalkeeper, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
But there we go. What's your feeling?
Oh, I don't know. I feel fairly positive. I think we could pull it off. I'm not an expert in soccer by any means because, like you, my game all my life has been rugby. But I get an instinctive feeling that Britain is on a roll, and I think England is on a roll, and we'll pull this one off.
Might be. Did you see any of last week's game of rugby against?
Oh yes, I saw all of that. I got up early in the morning to watch the championship. It's really a very interesting set of games that have been played.
It is indeed.
Mm-hmm.
It is, but I must say that if England could play like that against everybody, we would soon be back at the top of the ladder again. But nobody knows which team is going to turn up.
Indeed, and I think they need to play with more imagination. They're not as creative as they should be. Many of the other teams are much more inventive in the style of play that they're using, and we seem to be stuck in an old-fashioned, almost battering ram style of play, which we tried against South Africa, and that's the best team in the world you should try that against because they're impregnable. I mean, but constantly battering to get over the line when they should have got it out to the three quarters and made the game more fluid. So tactically,
I mean, we have got some good three quarters. We're building a good three-quarter line anyway, and the experimenting with is Finn Smith seems to be a pretty good standoff half.
Oh yes, indeed.
Kicking is immaculate.
Well, I think we're quite well off in standoff halves. In fact, we're quite well off in three quarters. But whether our choice of the frontline players is the right one, I'm not sure. And somebody who is a force to be reckoned with the second he's on the field is Harry Pollock, and yet for some reason they just sort of bring him on as a substitute.
Yeah.
And because of his bad boy image, I suppose. But second he's on the field, he changes the whole style of the game.
Yeah.
It's a shame that he's in competition with Ben Owes for the number 8 position, but because Ben Owes himself is an outstanding player, and they should find a way of accommodating them both, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Perhaps it's a bit too much specialism today.
Yeah. Anyway. It's an interesting distraction from the sorry state the world is in.
We're back at war on several fronts again.
Whether it's rugby
I'll get your view on that in a moment. But first of all, let's stay close to home. What's happening on the domestic front? Because I am absolutely fascinated by Marine Le Pen, and I'd like to know how she's getting on and how politics are moving along with her.
Well, according to the polls, she's going to win, and the various opposition possibilities that she has in the second round, because there are 2 rounds in the presidential elections in France, that the potential people that she'll face she'll win quite handily in all cases. if the extreme left Mélenchon faces this, she'll just wipe the board because he just hasn't got the political credibility to be an alternative to her. One or two of the middle of the roaders, such as Attal, the former prime minister, and they have a possibility, but they too, according to the polls, they won't come close. So she's likely to win, and it's about time really, because it's a little bit like the Farage party in Britain. Everybody is putting them down, but the people, that's what they're asking for.
Yes,
it's a denial of democracy. Now, whether you're for Farage or for Le Pen or any of these people, that's not the question. The politicians are living in a bubble in both countries, and they're just not listening to the people.
I agree with you totally.
If it wasn't Farage, it would be somebody like him, and that's what they want.
Yeah,
And that's to a degree what they desperately need. And that's not there to defend Farage. It's just to think in a democracy we should listen to what people want.
Well, I'm reasonably convinced that it is a typical political ploy to actually somebody gets up and says your policies stink, and they say, but you were caught in the pantry stealing the plum pie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And our media is in such a state at the moment that plum pie, Farage and the plum pie, they concentrate on that sort of stuff, scandal and gossip, instead of whether, in fact, Farage is actually being pilloried. I think he is.
You think if there was an election right now, he has a good chance of getting through? Or?
From some of the more serious commentators, I'm told that his depth of support in the country is pretty enormous,
mm-hmm.
and that the political parties are reacting to that.
Sure,
Starr might well have gone full term.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been calm waters, but the Labour Party is panicking. The Liberal Party it seems to have gone in reverse, and Badenoch is emerging herself as a pretty firm leader who wants to lead the party in the right direction. But a commentary in the Telegraph the other day said, can she actually bury the old guard fast enough?
Yeah.
And I think the answer is no, because they're still there on the benches,
But I think what has happened is the Lib Dems, for the lanyard class, or whatever they call themselves, they have become simply a rallying point for opposition, as indeed have the Greens. The dissatisfied people who still want to stick with the old system, the old values, and they're there as protest entities, but I don't think they're going to have much effect on British politics or what the British public are looking for. Not the way I read it, and of course all of this the theatre that is surrounding the coronation of Burnham as the incoming prime minister. It's good for him in a sense, but wasn't there anybody in the entire firmament of Labour MPs that has the qualities necessary to put themselves forward, not necessarily to be prime minister, but to be allowed the chance to be prime minister? That this is more like simply a coronation. All the hope is centered on one man, and we really don't know what his policies are yet. And a lot of it hinges, as the newspapers say, on who he chooses as Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Yeah. Well, I was a bit taken aback at myself, Harry, because Burnham over 2 or 3 years,
mm-hmm.
From people that I know as well as in the newspapers. And when the photograph first came up, I realised I didn't recognise this guy. Mm-hmm. I didn't know who he was.
No,
he's really been very Manchester-centric, if that's the right word.
Mm-hmm.
And whether he can actually appeal to the entire country, he may turn out to be worse than the one they've got at the moment, Starmer.
Well, we don't know. We're really not sure what he stands for, what his policies are. It seems that he feels that Britain is undertaxed, and therefore will boost taxation, and doing nothing about cutting all these frightful and unnecessary expenditures. But we don't know. We don't know what his program is. He says he's going to work within the borders of the limits of the Labour Party manifesto when they were elected with a landslide victory, but I think that's already been blown apart with Rachel Reeves, and so we don't know what he's going to do. Now, individually, he's quite a personable guy. He seems to be easy, relatable, and doing well. He's a very good politician, I think. He knows how to work people and change his views according to which way the wind is blowing on us in the morning. So it's obviously got leadership qualities, but what his program is, nobody knows.
And also, he's a new boy stepping in from the cold with all the old guard, much as they may be on the defensive, ready to watch his every step. And the people that he's called upon to be his own Praetorian Guard, the Miliband's, for instance, are already disgusted by the country.
Well, this is it. I mean, the Miliband brothers, who were essentially his contemporaries when he got into politics, so he's pretty close to them, and they have a lot in common. I mean, David Miliband was a disaster as a foreign minister, and who's probably going to become foreign minister again. And Ed Miliband is transformed into an ideological nutcase. With his zero fanaticism. So I don't know. I mean, I think for him to have any chance of success of pulling the country around, he'd have to distance himself from these people. He's got talent around him, Mahmoud, for instance, and others. But it depends what his choices are. Now, will his old loyalties, as you say, to the old guard, will they stick through? He has a chance to make a good impression, but you only have one chance to make a first impression. And that, we haven't seen that yet. So let's keep an open mind on what he's going to do. There's no alternative to him at the moment.
But that can be disastrous for Britain, because already a number of countries are treating us with suspicion.
Right, yes, indeed.
What are we going to do? Where do we stand?
It can be.
Our allies, quote, don't know. Let alone Westminster. I mean, nobody seems to know, and they're all on the line, holding their breath.
Well, when we talk about allies, who we're really talking about? Because I'm not sure we do have allies.
And he left.
Yeah, I believe this question about Europe. I mean, there's no united Europe. They're all out for their own interests, and we're seeing, the United States is distancing itself from Europe now. People look after their own interests, and there's no outstanding character in the European Union who comes forward to inspire you as a leader of the European.
Yeah. I suppose you're right, Harry, and I suppose that my definition of an ally must be somebody who's not actually going to lob a shell at us.
Well, somebody you can rely on when you need it. When you need an ally, I can't think we can rely on any of these people. In what sort of situation? I mean,
I agree with you.
Yeah.
We didn't actually ally ourselves with people like Ukraine and so on when the asking was there. So why should we expect people to ally with us if we have to ask? But I think there's an inherent belief that everybody actually will pull back from the brink. Putin, China, and so on, from doing anything that would upset us. And I think that's a false approach.
Well, it's absolutely false. I mean, it's people who are aggressive in their intentions and their political ambitions will keep advancing just as long as you retreat. and they view life totally different to the way we do. In fact, even the individual members of the European Union view life differently to the way we do. They're totally different cultures. You'll never. It's the most silly experiment that's happened politically in many times. You can't take cultures that are hundreds of years old and meld them into one brand new format in the space of even a lifetime. It would take several lifetimes for that to happen. So, Europe is just a question of each country pulling the blanket to their side of the bed.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. What is happening in Europe? Not necessarily the EU. What's happening in Europe that has struck you this past week since we talked last?
Well, Europe, and talking about allies. I mean, everybody is supposedly behind Ukraine and applying new sanctions and what have you, but we're buying record amounts of Russian gas to stock up in gas for when there no longer will be the cheap gas, and we are fueling. We're actually paying for all the thousands of missiles that are being rained down on Kiev right now, and yet we claim to be, and yet we're putting money into Ukraine. I mean, it's completely ridiculous. We are actually doing business to the tune of, I think we just about last month we bought $5 to $6 billion worth of gas from Russia. That's fueling the Russian war machine.
Yeah.
So and of course you add to that the stupidity, the fact that we've got gas ourselves and which we refuse to.
Yeah, that's right. The Miliband says no. Everybody snaps to attention.
Yeah.
I mean, it is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And none of these people that are so dominant at the moment in dictating our economic climate are answerable to the British electorate.
Indeed. Well, the British electorate is being ignored. I mean, the Tories proved themselves useless, and they were no longer conservatives in the final 10, 15 years of their recent hegemony in British politics. They weren't Tory conservatives at all. They become almost the old style liberal Democrats, and party has still got so many wets in it, Gok and people like that, and Kemi Badenoch is trying to bring it back into some form of Tory posture, political mental posture, and she's doing a fairly good job, but it's going to be a long time before she gets the party cleansed of all of these wets and makes it a true alternative to Farage, to what the people want. The people want a more right-wing government at the moment. It's all over Europe happening, and they're being denied it by the entrenched powers that be, backed up to a large degree by this monstrous, amorphous mass of the civil service.
Yes, it's amazing.
Hundreds of thousands of people who themselves are a political element. Yeah, yes, minister is a predominant way of running the government, I think.
Right, Harry. Let's move on from Europe and then Britain. What has our Mr. Trump been up to?
Well, Trump is started up the war again. The nightly bombardments. Well, mind you, nightly. He started daytime raids at the moment, but they're just they're just not serious efforts. He's not doing anything to cause any real pain to Iran. Only when he starts attacking infrastructure such as bridges, energy centers, oil production, takes out Cork Island or something quite serious like that. And surprisingly enough, many of the water desalination plants. That's the only way you'd bring Iran to its needs. It's to its knees. It's led by a band of ideological fanatics and bombing their military installations, which they've got now well hidden, and still quite powerful. They're able to riposte quite easily with the huge supply of rockets and drones. So unless he starts to fight a serious war, he's going to lose. I'm not sure if he hasn't already lost.
Yes. Well, I mean, it was interesting that the first ship to put its nose into the Straits of Hormuz was attacked.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all right. We'll let you alone. Boom.
But Trump has produced has proved that he's not the person of the moment. He started off with I mean, a detestable guy in terms of his personality, but a few ideas that I think were needed. One, at least, is to stop the Iranians getting the atomic bomb. That was a very necessary step. And so the Iran war was very necessary to put a stop to that. They were apparently very close to having the bomb. And so that is to be praised, but his handling of it is ignoring the technical advice of his military people and all the rest of it, his bombastic fashion of doing it. I mean, he is dangerous, and the sooner he's gone from there, the better. But like everything, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. No, it's essential for the future world security that Iran does not get the bomb, and therefore it's essential that we bring about regime change or put the country in such an economic state that it cannot pursue those types of ambition. It's an exporter of terrorism already. Finally, we've banned the Revolutionary Guard late in the day. And so the idea behind the war is in a sense a noble one, but being very poorly handled by a bunch of incompetents.
What is it, Harry, do you think, creates a situation like this where almost every Western nation has been in either suspect or weak leadership all at the same time, and all at the time that they are needed?
Well, the West has been living on a peace dividend and under the umbrella of protection of the United States ever since the end of World War II, and certainly since the end of the Cold War, and so they've not invested in defense, and they no longer have a sense of nationhood. If you're to believe the polls that which are quoted, very few British young people would believe in defending their country anymore. So that's within the lifetime of their parents or grandparents who sacrificed themselves in the hundreds of thousands for fighting against tyranny, but they wouldn't know what sort of a world is it that they aspire to be living in.
Well, I don't think that all these youngsters that go abroad go to anything other than sand and sangria, and they come back thinking that that's what it's like out there.
Yeah.
Isn't that absolutely wonderful? Why would we disrupt something like that?
Yeah.
I have no idea of the way that people live under the sun of authoritarian rule and so on and so forth in so many of these countries.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is it. I mean, do we want to retain the Britain? Well, if you're in my childhood, that's one aspect of it. But the world is changing all the time. We perhaps we're no longer up to date with the collective will of the people. But is there such a thing as a British identity anymore? Devolution. Many of the old hatreds have come to the fore. Scotland, Wales, the English. I'm not sure it's a very healthy situation to be in, and so maybe our time is past.
Yeah.
And the news.
I think it is, Harry. Having said that, what's filling the gap isn't very satisfactory. I mean, we can't say anymore. Well, that's not very good, but at least it will do. We're having to say that's not very good and it won't do. But we don't know what's going to fill that gap. You're quite right.
Well, we're living in a world now where this Anne Widdecombe's death, for instance, the notion that we should have political or ideological assassinations, terrorist assassinations in Britain, it's almost becoming as if it's normal. The hate that is being spewed both by left and right. It is a country that is becoming highly unrecognizable unless we're prepared to clamp down very hard on that. That's going to the new world that our children, grandchildren, and their children are going to grow up in.
In some ways, that's who we have to worry about, isn't it? Our children, because it's not going to make much difference to you and I, the amount of time that we've got left. But I don't think that nowadays that people look too much to the future.
Well, that's right. They look for the moment. They live for the moment, and they want somebody else to pay for it. That's the
yes.
Yeah. And of
how
course,
are we on? I had occasion this week to ask AI if they could find out for me the people involved in a concert in Moscow with the Korean, what I understood, the Korean State Orchestra and the Moscow Symphony. And he came back and said, there's no record of ever, those two musical groups playing together. And I said, well, I was at this concert. And apparently, what they do is they put together an orchestra of traditional instruments, which this was. And for such occasions, the Russians put together a skeleton orchestra, not really the proper symphony. And this was a brilliant concert. It was an absolutely brilliant concert. But I also found out that one of the pupils that I had, and the reason that I was there when I was in Moscow, was a lovely little Korean girl who apparently benefited very well from my training because she went back to be a star reporter in Korea and went out and became a White House correspondent and reported on the big issues in the States. So I was quite pleased that in asking about one thing, I discovered something else.
Yeah.
But Korea, Russia, what of them?
Well, Russia, in many ways, I worry less about Russia than our reaction to it. Russia has, under the current regime, is aggressive. It's trying to rebuild the old Russian Empire, or at least part of it, and it's failed. It needs to be resisted. But I almost feel that Russia is a spent force, apart from its very powerful nuclear arsenal, and doesn't get silly and start throwing that around. It is no longer an economic force to be reckoned with, and its economy is essentially based on fossil fuels, and they're in decline in usage generally in the world. There's going to be an oil glut fairly soon, I think, once the current problems are resolved. So I don't see Russia really being in a position strong enough to cause a lot of damage in the next few years. It can be useful waving that flag, that possibility, to get the Europeans to spend more on defense, because it's only when you have a strong defense that you deter aggression. So it's very important that we use this opportunity to build on the myth, I suppose, that Russia will attack the rest of Europe. I think it could do in parts up in the Baltics, one or two adventures there. But no, I don't see Russia as a long-term threat, but only as long as we keep ourselves well armed and ready to deter them.
And you know, with this wishy-washy approach that Britain has, is that reflected in the rest of Europe?
I'm sorry, I missed that one.
The wishy-washy approach that we've got to defence, is that reflected in the rest of Europe?
Well, it's not a priority. Their priority is to sign on another 1,000 people on the welfare rolls every day, and spending many times the cost of defending the country and putting the country back on a solid economic base. The priorities are different. They cater to their voters. These are the people who will vote for them. And it's a way of purchasing votes. All these benefits, if you take them away from them, they're going to vote for somebody else. So keep giving them benefits.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of truth there, Harry. Is that happening in other countries?
Oh, to a degree, yes. To a degree. Though there's one or two kickbacks happening in some of the so-called left-wing Scandinavian countries, where an incipient nationalism is creeping back in, and they're reacting against immigration. Even left-wing governments in Sweden and Denmark, and they're realizing that the public does not want that, and that their political future is based on taking a stronger line on it. So there are encouraging signs, but we're not there yet. We're still living of borrowed money, and increasingly borrowed money, and unfortunately, it looks like Mr. Burnham will be borrowing even more.
Yes, it's very frightening. I mean, one of the things about Japan, even though it's borrowed far more than we have, it's its own money.
But indeed it is. Most of Japan's debt is held by the Japanese. I think it's the larger individual debt that a nation has, but mostly by little old ladies in their savings accounts. And so it's less of a problem. But they're in the front line, of course, against an emerging and even more aggressive China. So they, too, are in a very delicate position. Hopefully, the counterbalance of India, which is emerging as a very strong economic power and military power, will hold the Chinese in check. But hegemony over the South China Sea is, domination of countries like the Philippines and the rest of it has pretty much been handed to China on a plate. And they're not going to back off anytime soon. And of course, their ambition is to reunite Taiwan with the mainland.
Yeah.
And they want to do that in time for the anniversary of their revolution, and that's 59, is it? 49, sorry. So they're hell bent on doing that. And the latest story is that they're building entire mock-ups of the American fleet in the desert. And practicing dummy runs or real runs on how to destroy battleships and aircraft carriers. Amazing.
All they got to do is to watch Tora.
Yeah. And
so they're on celluloid.
And they're increasing their armed forces constantly, and yet we just seem to be blind to that possibility.
Well, actually, in fairness, Harry, China hasn't made as many militant challenges as it has in the past. Is it actually keeping its powder dry? Is it sort of pretending to back off a little, to soften its stance, while getting on with it behind closed doors, which of course Hitler did?
Well, I think China faces a particular set of problems. One we've talked about before is that they're still paying the price of their reduced population from the one baby policy, which has been reversed, but it's a little bit, that'll take another generation or two to put that right. So they have a shrinking population. They have a population which is becoming more middle class and will want a greater say in things. Now, Xi Jinping, the leader, is cementing his authority, his dictatorial authority, to a degree, to prevent against that change. But I think eventually, structurally, it'll be forced within itself, and there'll be some sort of a progressive regime change. Maybe not in our lifetime, that's for sure. But in the next 50 years, China will, I think, have its structural changes which will require some level of democracy to be introduced. And at the moment, I mean, it's a highly surveyed and spied on public, and anybody who says the wrong thing, disappears, and it's very, very it's very much of a totalitarian state, and the current regime is making it even more so.
Yeah.
But that can only go to certain limits. It's just like Putin in Russia. I mean, there's going to be people who will turn against him in the long run. While you're successful, that's fine. But when things start to go wrong, they blame somebody, and there's always powers behind the throne.
That's true. Always somebody looking for allies to their own position.
Or ambitions of their own to take over,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is this sense of unease across the Pacific still there, Harry, or are the leaders there beginning to breathe a little sigh of relief? It's not going to happen on my watch.
I'm sorry, I missed that, Steve.
It's not going to happen on my watch.
No, well, that's right, and people push it off. We're moving to in France. We're moving towards the end of the rule of Macron, and so he's a bit lame duck now as a president. So he's trying to establish what he thinks his legacy should have been, but he hasn't been a success. Many people say he was too bright for his own good. He was an intellectual. He wasn't a practical sort of a person. And, interesting guy, great speaker, great talker, personable, young, dynamic to a degree. But I think he's, to quote Keir Starmer, he's left France in a worse state than when he found it.
Yes, I mean, actually, where the worry has been expressed about interference from Moscow has been amongst the northern states like Hungary, Poland, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Is the same sense of anxiety present in the rest of Europe?
Oh no, not at all. There's no, even in France, there's no anxiety whatsoever. When these questions are asked to the public in broad polling, they don't even get onto the question list. Nobody sees Russia as a threat at all. It's only those countries that are in the front line that, as I said, the Baltic states, Poland, Hungary to a degree, that really begin to get a reaction amongst the voting public. But no, there's a total lack of awareness, and even in Germany, it's not a priority for them to arm against any potential invasion by Russia.
Yeah, and it is alarming, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it is alarming. There's a lack of awareness, and as you mentioned yourself earlier, it's we're living in an age of what can I get better that somebody else will pay for.
Yeah.
So
now we know that there's lots of disruption in Gulf countries, but the rest of Africa is described as a sleeping giant. Do you share that view?
Well, indeed it is. The potential of Africa is enormous in the long term, but they have to get over various structural problems, and they're just moving. Some of the countries are still dictatorships or semi-dictatorships, and democracy is only beginning to raise its head in others. So no, it's going to take time, but it is, and of course it's very rich in mineral resources of one kind or another. But I don't see it as being a united force that is going to change the direction of the world. It will still need a lot of support, I think, for a generation or two in Africa. I don't think, in other words, I don't see any threat to world order coming from Africa. You've got these local conflagrations, such as South Sudan at the moment. They could develop into something more serious, but no, they're localized, and I think that's a problem that they have to solve amongst themselves.
South America the same?
No, South America is well, South America. We've got. Let's get to talk about Argentina. And if they win tonight, they will be literally politicizing the event to try and get their hands back on the Falkland Islands, which is a bit of a joke, really, considering the history of the Falkland Islands were annexed to Britain in as early as 1690, and Argentina didn't exist until 1816. So how they can claim the Falklands is a mystery to me. And of course, the Falklands were settled mostly by Falklands. If you take the name Falklands, it's a name I think that comes from Fife in Scotland, and it was essentially settlement in the Falklands began in the 1830s and 1833 about. So the society, the Falkland Islanders, are overwhelmingly British, and voted overwhelmingly to, apart from 3 votes, I think, to remain British when they had the referendum. So the actual logic of why Argentina has any territorial claim on the Falklands is a mystery to me.
Yeah. Proximity seems to be the only thing, and it's not that close, is it?
No, it's not. It's not a question of proximity. I mean, there are many other flashpoints or potential flashpoints that exist in the world. I think of lots of other islands in the Pacific, which were claimed by Britain and then eventually relinquished by Britain because it was their policy not to do anything about it. My wife comes from one of them. She's a native of New Caledonia, which was discovered by Cook on his second voyage of discovery. But eventually, the Brits did nothing with it, and it was annexed by the French in 1851. Admiral Despointes sent 10 sailors ashore to raise the French flag. They were promptly eaten by the natives, but so he was upset about that. So he sent more sailors, and they put a little bit of order back in life, and then the French developed it initially as a penal colony. Now it's one of the world's largest sources of nickel, but it was British. Now it's French. I mean, these places change. Treaties are made, and in fact, going back to the Falklands, there is a formal treaty that was negotiated and signed and agreed upon that it would remain British. And the signatories to that are now wanting to undo that treaty. So either treaties are worth something or they're not.
Harry, we've gone around the world in 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us an overview of what you think is happening and what could likely happen?
What is happening in the world in general?
Generally speaking, overall.
Well, I think we're heading towards some sort of economic crisis, but then again, we always have been, and we always pull back from the brink. On the positive side, I don't see a major war breaking out because it would be catastrophic. It would be the end of the human race if we got into an atomic war or a full-scale war. So I think common sense and commonality of interest will prevail long before that happens. But we're still on the slippery slope, and I think things will get worse before they get better. But the future of the world, the past history has always been cyclical, ups and downs, and I take a positive view. I think the problems that we face now are not insoluble. They will be resolved, and you and I will probably be long gone by then.
Yes.
But wherever we are, we shall be watching this and with interest. And but no, my view for the future is fairly positive. I think we very often build crises that loom larger than they really are.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting that actually Russia did not pull back from the brink when it should have, and actually I always remember interviewing an economist from, yes, an economist from The Economist. And he used the phrase, the markets rose up and spanked them. And
Yeah. Well, that's so true. I
the markets do have that power of spanking, don't they?
yeah, but these are the forces that are at work. I mean, eventually, if Britain doesn't get its economic act together, the International Monetary Fund will step in. There are safeguards. I mean, you can't just keep borrowing indefinitely. So there are mechanisms in place that will protect nations from their own incompetent governments. Yeah.
No. But overall, do you see one power or the other becoming dominant? Can you see any signs of that at the moment as to who that might be?
Any signs of
who might become the dominant power over the next 100, 200 years?
Oh, in the world, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh no, I don't. I think the world is essentially fragmenting at the moment into power bases, and they will find a level of equilibrium. And there's no future in any of them in going into a major war, not with modern weaponry. So there'll be spheres of influence, and they will change. I don't think we should write off the American sphere of influence just yet. I think it's going to be around for at least another generation or two. It's still a very powerful force to be reckoned with. It's had a dearth of good leaders recently. It had so-called nice guys like Barack Obama, who really were quite, I think, useless. They didn't do anything, really. And we've had these raving nutcases like Trump, who is making a mess of things altogether. Probably the calmest time we had was under people like Reagan, the film actor. And the world it kept the world pretty much at peace in the Reagan years. So, it's not worth saying he was a good president or a bad president, but Harry Truman was a great president, I think. He kept the lid on things after World War II. And so we need somebody like that to take over. And on the sphere of influence of which we will be part. Now, the other Asian spheres of influence, led by China, of course, and involving North Korea and others, and maybe some of the Middle Eastern countries, there'll be other spheres of interest, and they will follow their path. But all things being cyclical, they've constantly, the more powerful somebody becomes in a regime, the more they've got to watch their backs.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Harry, as usual, wonderful analysis. We have gone out live, but this will be replayed tomorrow morning for those people who are used to having you on on a Thursday morning. So if you roll out of bed and you've got the television controller in your hand, at some stage you can click it and watch yourself.
The reason I couldn't do it tomorrow morning is because I'm seeing the surgeon tomorrow. I managed to fall over for the second time in 2 weeks and tore all the muscles in my left arm. And it's a bit of a mess, actually, inside, and all my ligaments are broken and very painful. So I'll be seeing the surgeon tomorrow to see if, he's not going to take my arm off.
Yeah. Well, let's hope not.
Yeah.
Well, Harry, we wish you all the best with your visit to the hospital.
And catch up with you next
week. Here next week.
And catch up with you next week, I take it. Yeah.
Yes, and I because my own program is often dictated by people with stethoscopes around their necks. I understand what you'll be going through tomorrow. But hopefully that won't last for too long.
Well, tomorrow we'll be able to celebrate England's victory over Argentina. So,
Yes. Well,
3-1 is
round. Don't drop the glass.
3-1 is my forecast.
Is that right?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I shall watch as we go along to see how close you are to be able to say that's what it should be.
And you know what? If they lose, as long as they played the game, I'm going to shrug. But it's not the end of the world. It becomes well, the friends go to these extremes and they set fire to cars and riots. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Well, perhaps to one or two people it is a matter of the end of the world, but to us, certainly not. It just means probably the setting of the manager.
Exactly. Yeah. So we'll celebrate tomorrow.
It's a delight to have you as usual and talk to you, and we'll see you next week, hopefully.
Okay, Keith. God bless. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.